All right, welcome everyone to Careers in Architecture. Today we have Amelia Brown, who is not only a single alumni, but she's also a dual alumni, getting her both her bachelor's and master's of architecture here at UNC Charlotte. She currently is working at Gensler, which is one of the firms locally to Charlotte, and we're just so happy that she's here to share about her expertise. And with that, Amelia, I'm going to hand it over to you, if you don't mind maybe filling in some of the gaps of, tell us a little bit more about your education, kind of how your career got started in architecture.
Sure. Thanks, Suzanne. I am super excited to talk to everyone today, especially being an alum. My first really decision-making process with becoming an architect started when I was about 8 years old. I have always been interested in buildings and spaces, and I started drawing them at a young age. And I was like, "Mom, what is this? What am I doing? How can I make this a job?" And she's like, "Oh, become an architect." And that was it. That was the moment I decided. So, working through high school and trying to plan myself to that, I, planned to myself at UNC Charlotte and went to the 4-year undergrad program and then into the master's program. And I, graduated in 2008. 2008, just making sure I remember, with my master's, and immediately left Charlotte and went to California because I spent a lot of time as a child there. And I worked at Freeman White in California. They actually have a Charlotte office, and I was able to connect with the Charlotte office to get the position out in California. Spent some time in San Diego and then moved up to the Bay Area to work at a little firm up there. Uh, when I realized that to be in the Bay Area, I needed to make more money, I realized maybe I should just go somewhere where my money goes further. And so it was really a no-brainer to come back to Charlotte because we really loved it in Charlotte. And I've been here ever since then. So that was back in 2011. I worked at Freeman White, got a job back at Freeman White in Charlotte, and then transitioned to Gensler in 2015 and have been there ever since. And so I worked on getting my license really between the end of my career at Freeman White, working into at Gensler, and got my license at Gensler. And that was back in 2016 that I finally finished all of those, that process. And have really, moved up inside Gensler. There's, a lot of pathways in there too that we can talk about.
I was going to say, can you tell us more about the firm and some of the types of design you're currently working on?
Sure. So Gensler is a worldwide design firm. They are the largest design firm, most well-recognized design firm. They have 50 offices all over the globe. Charlotte is one of the 50, and we have about 50 people that work there. We in Charlotte do projects that range from, very tiny renovation type projects all the way to millions of square feet. And so we do, base building type work, ground up structures, interior architecture, specialty projects we can't talk about, lots of fun things. But it really is, something new every day and some type of new project every day. We also are able to utilize the resources with we call it the big G. The connectedness between our office and the rest of the firm is, in my opinion, unmatched. It's incredibly connected. We call ourselves a one firm. So there's no such thing as an office fighting with another office about a client, or only benefiting financially and the rest of the firm does not benefit. It's all connected, which is really great because the resources are just incredible. The type of exposure you get just being in Charlotte to the world is just so much fun and amazing. So I really have really grown into a position of, comfort and admiration at Gensler. I could talk about Gensler all day, so, but I'll leave it at that.
No, and I'm just curious, I mean, what led you to architecture? When did you decide, I want to be an architect? I want to go to school. I want to become a professional in this field.
So yeah, I mean, it really was at a young age, and I never stopped since I was a child. When I went into high school and they said, you really should start thinking about what you want to do, I said, okay, I know exactly what I want to do. How do I get there? So I took drafting, I took art, I took, anything that could get, woodworking. I took anything that could expose me to the building industry. And, you know, I think drafting was probably the best one, the best class. But I think art actually, and I'm sure other students would attest to this as well. My art class is actually what influenced, I think, my being able to be accepted at UNC Charlotte. So that is really important in school to focus on. But the technical aspect of your education is also something to pay attention to, because the moment you leave school, your ability to document and deliver a project is going to happen right away. And so I would encourage anyone thinking about what your electives might be, or any training, certifications, anything like that, to look into that and really focus on that as something that could be marketable when you leave school.
No, that's great. Thank you. And actually, that leads to my next question, or what are some of the most helpful things that you use to help you navigate a career in architecture?
So I would say, first and foremost, it would have to be aligning yourself with advocates. And so that could be your fellow classmates, your professors. That could be, if you are going out and interning, to really get to know and get a really good relationship with the people who you work for, because your advocates are how you can basically project yourself to what you want to do. That was something that took me a little bit to learn, but now that I know it, I have seen measurable change in how fast I can move up. And when I say move up, find the firm I want to work for, find the type of work I want to work on. Having someone to help you along the way and be your advocate when to talk to someone that you may not have access to. The other piece would again be trying to figure out from a tactical perspective what types of tools you need, right? Like a really easy example is Revit. That's what people use today. And so if you want to look into finding the tool that everyone's going to use, that's the tool. And there's lots of other ones that I think making sure that you feel comfortable speaking in front of people, training on that. I mean, I know that's a lot of what being a student at UNCC, at the SOA is all about. But that was another, I would say, tool that was really important.
Oh, that's great. And talk to us about also some of the challenges maybe you faced as you were thinking about, where do I get my first job? How do I showcase my skills to these employers?
I would say anything that you can utilize that is already set up is the first thing to approach. And so I know the job fair just came through, the Career Expo just came through. That was invaluable to me and a lot of my other peers to find the right position, even if it's not actually getting your job that way. Just knowing what's out there, talking to the different firms about how they do their business, and just getting that exposure to what actually is there. And then I would also encourage you to again, just make the first step to try to get a job in the industry as fast as you can, even if it's just a 2-month internship, between spring and fall semester, just to get your feet wet. I think it will make you have the confidence to jump out there into the field.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I'm just curious, this is not a question in the list I was going to ask you, but how has COVID, and I know you've been working from home, and just construction in general, I mean, has it slowed down? Is it revving up? But how has COVID hit the industry for you?
So the first 6 months of COVID, I would say, and this really happened globally, we were all quarantined, right? Things slowed down pretty quickly, but it did not take very long for it to pick back up. And in our experience at Gensler, it pretty much ramped up faster than we were going before, because clients realized, what a great opportunity. Nobody's in the office. Let's do our updates now. Let's find a new building now when it's cheap, right? And so that really has catapulted us to being the busiest we've ever been, having the most exposure to the projects that we have. getting into new industries that way, because people start rethinking how they do things. So it's been a huge change, and I think, a really good time for the industry. One thing that, I was explaining to you, Suzanne, before we got everyone on the call, the working from home aspect has been difficult. We are a collaborative industry. We need to be together to come up with ideas. We can do it virtually. It's not impossible. We actually have been very successful, but I would say the fulfillment, enrichment of collaborating with your teams in person has been lacking, and we're super excited to get back together. I think there's a lot of industries that are moving away from being in person. I do not think that's the case for us. I think we just do better together. So really excited to get back in the office, and I've already started, so I'm ready to see everybody else and it to be more often.
That's great. I'm going to take a quick break from my questions just to check in to see if the students have any questions. I'll give them a second to think.
So I'm graduating in May from undergrad, and I've decided to take a gap year to get professional experience. And I participated in the Career Expo, and it went great. I had a lot of fun meeting people. And I think so I'm graduating early from undergrad because I had general education from before. So I feel like my skill set, like compared to the master's students or even to the fourth years who are graduating, isn't it's like not I'm like don't have as many, like I'm not like as advanced in my skills as they are. So I guess I'm just a little bit like nervous about locking down like an internship or like a full-time job for a year or so, and then I don't know, just like finding the right place for my gap year, and like I don't know, just guidance about that.
Yeah, sure. So one thing that I would say our industry doesn't do a good job of is talking about some of the opportunities maybe directly alongside a traditional architecture apprenticeship or internship. So thinking about pairing with furniture vendors, pairing with construction management, all of those career paths are still really good career paths for a gap year. Like, you're going back and you're going to get your degree, and that's, eventually what, your career will take you. But it also might open up some just, differences in understanding the industry that I think we just don't do a good enough job of explaining that are opportunities. So I would encourage you to, still pursue any firm that you'd like to reach out to. But if it doesn't seem to be hitting the ground, take a look at some of those others, because I work every day with engineers, with contractors, with furniture vendors, with owners reps that all need interns just like we do, and could really benefit from an architecture student skill set, with presentations and with, and rendering, things like that. They do all of that too. So I would take a look at those avenues.
Wow, that is super helpful. Thank you. Yeah, I still feel like it's pretty early. Like it's the 1st of March, so I'm definitely like I'm gonna try to see like what opportunities are there and what like would help me learn the most, like when the time comes. But
Sure,
it's
and
really good to
keep
know
going.
that there's a
Yeah, I would say keep going with, if you're super excited about a firm that you've talked to, keep in touch with them, because you're right, it's March. Some of these firms may only have a 1 or 2 openings, but that may change in May. So keep in touch with them and check their sites, or however they post jobs, to see if anything also continues to pop up, as they may have said, oh, we have a graduate candidate, we need a full-time position. But if their projects come in and they ramp up, they may still be looking.
True.
Well, thank you for that question. That was really great.
It was.
Tell us more, Amelia, about what you like most about your job.
What I like most about my job is the people. When I first started, in the industry, I don't think that would have thought that would have been my answer, but being able to grow alongside other people is my favorite part by far. The people I work with are my best friends. And I mean, it's very similar to the studio culture. And that I think I was surprised by, especially my first couple jobs where I was at small firms and there weren't very many of us. The possibilities of really getting your enrichment and fulfillment just by being with your peers in your office is awesome. And they're the ones that really help me keep going when something's difficult. I mean, this industry is a challenging industry. It's very rewarding, but it's very challenging. And there's a lot of, prove yourself moments. There's a lot of make or break moments, but if you're alongside several people who you trust and who lift you up, it makes it worth it.
That's great. And contrary to this, what do you like least about your job, if there are any least?
Well, I'm sure, especially later in your schooling profession, you realize if you're not passionate about this job, you need to move on and go somewhere else. I mean, it's very, very evident when you're in school, it's the same. So there's not a whole lot of dislikes, but I would say that not everyone plays the same way that we do. We're very super collaborative. We want the project to be the best. Some people have ulterior motives. And that's something that's been very challenging, especially when you realize how passionate you are about a project, a client, the work that you're doing, and you realize that some people may not be on that same plane, and trying to figure out how to manage that, how to manage your expectations of that, and let it roll off your shoulders. It's something that I have to deal with daily, but the getting support that I have from my teammates and coworkers help, but it is hard. Not everyone cares like you do. Not everyone, is worried about the end result. They're worried about the bottom line, or they're worried about the schedule, and they don't see the things you see. So that, I would say, is the most challenging part.
No, thank you for sharing that. I always like to hear if there are any, not negatives per se, but challenges in the field that we should consider. But that's really eye-opening. And now I know you have your master's, and some students go straight into working full-time after their bachelor's, and then they work towards licensure. Talk to us about just, I guess, your personal decision about getting a master's. Are there other types of education that students should be thinking about as they also pursue their licensure?
Sure. My original decision to go into the master's program had a lot to do with my desire to potentially teach one day. I have always loved mentoring, young professionals and again, my peers. And so I knew that I would run into a roadblock if I ever decided to teach. And so that was my first decision. But another thing that I realized as I was going through it and afterwards is I got to have a lot of fun with my master's thesis. You can really come up with anything, and you don't get to do that again. So I think that was another thing that was super rewarding. I went down a super theoretical avenue, and I got to do that and explore it. And you don't get to do that when you're in the industry. So if that's something that you're really enjoying as part of school, and you want to explore something more, or just have the opportunity to do that, that's why I would recommend the master's program. Or of course, if you'd like to teach, that's kind of a prereq, right? So having that master's degree.
Does the master's also help with leadership opportunities in different firms, or what might be the benefit of it in addition to teaching?
That's a good question. I might need to ask my coworkers because I'm not really sure. I haven't, so I'm part of the hiring committee as well at Gensler for our office. That so far has not been a make or break for the applicants that we have. So now I guess if you're having a really, really hard time and you have to choose between that, maybe that would influence, but so far it has not been the case.
Yeah, that's interesting. No, thanks for sharing that. I'll take another quick break. Students, do you have another question for Amelia? And you're welcome to put questions in the chat also if you don't want to turn on your microphone.
I am actually a student in civil engineering, and I was wanting to get the perspective from an architect. Like, 'cause you mentioned earlier that you work with engineers. Uh, what is that like from your perspective?
So I work with civil engineers all the time. I work with structural engineers, mechanical, lots, I mean, acoustical consultants. They're all over the spectrum. They're part of our teams. I mean, they're very much integrated to our teams, even though they may work for another firm. It is that partnership and collaboration is also very important for those partnerships to work, and of course to be successful both for your personal fulfillment and just from a fiscal responsibility, right? The better people can collaborate with one another across the industries, the easier it is to get a project done, and the more money you can make. And so I would encourage you to really look at architects and the other engineers that are working on these projects as your teammates, and get to know them on a personal level. There's one civil engineer that I've worked with for the last 7 years. The moment I walked into Gensler, I've worked with him, and I know his family now, and I know what he's doing on vacation and things like that. And it again, it's been really enriching for me. And the value that we all bring, the expertise, like I feel like architects are jack of all trades, master of none, because we have all these wonderful resources like civil engineers, structural engineers that know so much more than I do about something. And I value that. And so, that's the opportunity also for you to help architects understand why you might do certain things is also important.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, that was a great question, Manuel. And I'm just curious, I know you touched on this just a little bit earlier, but when I'm meeting with students one-on-one, they have a lot of questions around how do I market myself as a future architect, or kind of like Manuel, a future engineer. How do I do that effectively without being, overbearing or pushy? What is the most appropriate way in the architecture world to connect with professionals and to reach out? Like Amelia might want to reach out to learn about internship or career opportunities.
So LinkedIn is definitely, it's kind of baseline, right? Make sure that you are up to date on your LinkedIn profiles. Make sure that you have some narrative on there about yourself, about what your experiences are. Share anything that you've done that may be just above and beyond taking your classes. That's really important because we do care about those things when we're looking for applicants. What are you doing above and beyond getting your grades, right? So reaching out and doing things like any type of community involvement, anything that could set you apart from another person that might be taking the same classes as you. I think that's really important to do. And then of course, just keeping yourself out there, making sure that you're reaching out, either within a job application process or outside of that, is critical. Another thing I would recommend too with your resume and your portfolio building, make sure it is simple, succinct, everything is spelled correctly. I know that sounds really particular, but the moment we see something that's sloppy, it goes out the door. We know that there's going to be someone who can spell correctly in the one document we read about them. So very, very important. Easy to read, and again, making sure that you are very concrete about the things that set you apart from potentially one of your other peers.
That's such great advice, and I'll just ask the next question, kind of leading from that. But what are other pieces of advice or tips that you'd like to give students? Maybe something that you wish you had known, when you were still in school, and you wish someone would have told you. But what are some other pieces of advice you'd like to share?
Sure. I would say the first would be, do not be afraid to speak up. The moment you get in the door with someone who may have more experience than you, or may sound smarter than you, or any of that, this industry really revolves around new ideas and confidence and really collaboration, right? So when you get the opportunity to be in front of someone that could potentially influence your career, be engaged and be a part of that participation process. It's really important because you all have important things to say. You all have good ideas, and it may not seem like it, but it's surprising how someone who you think is, been doing this for 1,000 years. Oh, I never thought about that. You have a lot of value the moment you step into it, that space with them, and feel comfortable to do that, because you do have all of the value that we're looking for when we ask you to participate. And then the other piece is, again, about trying to make relationships is that's super important, no matter what it may look like. No matter if you make your first job site visit and there's a framer asking a question, engage with them, and learn from them. That's probably my other piece of advice. Every single thing is a learning opportunity. So take advantage of that. And it may not seem like it at the time, but it'll come back. And it never stops. The learning opportunities never stop. So, take advantage of those.
I'm just curious, are you excited to try something new in the next few years? Are you kind of looking ahead, and not that you have to completely switch or anything, but are there things on the pipeline coming up for you that you're really excited about? Maybe new projects or something personal with your own design.
So one project that I'll share a little bit about that I'm working on right now that I'm just so jazzed about. This is the project that's defining my career right now. I don't know if you all have seen the building that's going up next to the Duke Energy Center. It's all in the news. I am the lead architect on the interiors for that project. And so it is the most challenging project I've ever worked on, but it is also so far the most rewarding. I am just over the moon about the potential for that project for my career and for Charlotte, our community. There's so many things that I'm super proud about. That, again, it's a make or break, right? So I'm just trying to make sure I make it on the other side of it. But I feel like that project is going to open up other opportunities for me. So that's what I'm excited about. Is just waiting for what that might be. And so if you haven't, if anyone has any questions about that, because it's the new skyscraper going up, I am happy to answer them. I think that it's going to be a big influence obviously on the skyline and just Charlotte as a community in general. So.
Well, I'm just curious. What is the process? Is there like a bid, or do you have to submit your ideas? What is that process like to become the lead on that particular project?
It's about the relationship. So we have, Gensler has a very good relationship with Duke Energy. They, when they made the decision to build this tower, they didn't even look anywhere else. They said, Gensler, you're the one. And that's because of many, many years of relationship building with them and trust building with them. So how I actually got onto that role. So I've done other projects for Duke Energy, nothing that scale. And I got put on the project team at the very early stages because of some of the programs that were in the building and some of my experiences with that. But I kind of rolled into the lead position because I think of my excitement about it, my commitment to the project. I hit the ground running with it and wanted to be engaged. And I asked all the questions. They could not stop me from being, a part of the core team. And then that just kind of naturally progressed. They're like, well, you own this. You know everything about this project. You want to be the person in front of the client about this project. And so I kind of pushed my way into it a little bit. But that's the thing. You got to be hungry, and we are. You start being hungry when you start this process in school. It's just you got to be. So that's why I give the advice I give, because it really can. That the more you're engaged and the more you open up, the opportunities will follow that.
Congratulations. That sounds really exciting. I feel like a field trip is in our future to come.
Oh, I would love to do that. I got to get past the red tape of the safety, but yes, that would be so much fun.
That's amazing. I don't get uptown as much as I want to, but I'll have to maybe duck in. Now, when is the expected finish date?
2023, and it keeps
Okay.
fluctuating.
Oh, we're gonna have to wait at least a year. Well,
That's
no,
right.
that's exciting. That's exciting. Okay, I'll open it up again to students. You guys are the ones living this in school, for engineering and architecture. So think about what questions you might have for Amelia.
Is there a particular way you feel like your how you studied in school and your design process is informing how you work now? Like, are you thinking about, oh, this reminds me about this time in school, or I don't know, just how you utilize your education day to day?
Sure. There have been actually a couple marked moments in my career where I realized how I may have gone about discovering my designs in school directly influenced starting that same process. Where I think I've noticed it the most actually has to do with detailing. Our big concepts are really a small part of the process in the industry. That only takes probably a quarter to an eighth of the time as it does to document, finish the idea generation process, document it, and then deliver it in construction. And so thinking about those details sooner, I think makes your design stronger. And really getting into the little nitty gritty, especially when you're excited about it. And that's part of why you came up with the concept, I think really can translate easily to the industry.
That's a great question and answer. Manuel, do you have any more questions around engineering and how they work with architects?
So what is the process of you coming up with the plan, formatting it all, and then handing it off to civil, structural, anything? How do you hand it off to the engineers to make it come to life?
Sure. So that kind of conceptual phase that I was talking about, there's stages of that. And so when we have a project that has, any type of civil scope, I'll use that as the example, we, will do a really, really, I would say rough version of placing some of these things on the site, but sometimes we can't even get that far, and we have to engage on with a civil engineer because of topography, because of access to roads, because of maybe setbacks and zoning, things like that. We immediately will need their input. And so a lot of times when we get, the project from the client, we may not have even started the design process before the civil engineers get involved. And so sometimes there's block planning done. Sometimes we're saying, can you come to the table before we start drawing and let us know what our boundaries are? And so that design process really is integrated with the engineers, especially civil up front. Usually structural will come in after that block has started to identify maybe what the structure might be, what kind of limitations we may have, are we choosing steel or concrete, and way before the design is finalized and moving into documentation, do we need those answers from our engineers?
That is fascinating.
So it's a lot more. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's a lot more. I'm trying to think of the word. It's a lot more involved. Like, we're a lot more involved than I initially thought. So that's cool to learn. So thank you.
That's great. All right, last call for questions. And I also put Amelia's LinkedIn handle in the chat, so feel free to connect with her. She's a wealth of information, as you can see.
Oh, thank you.
All right, well, with that, I just want to say thank you so very much to you, Amelia, for being here and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge about this field. This has been really insightful, and I'm glad the students were able to join us today. And just thank you so much for being a partner. And it's always wonderful to hear from alumni and to see, their career path and where they currently are working. So it's such a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure. I am happy to do this again and come in and talk to anyone who'd like to learn more about it.